The broadcast is live.
All right, here we are on a Saturday. As Gretzky over here said, we threw him off, but we had somebody in this house with a birthday, so it's been birthday last night and today. But let me tell you something about the wife that she did. I was going to tell you guys off air, but we're here now. But we've had a thing going. We've had a thing going back and forth where she's like, "I'm a lady," and I'm like, "No, you don't." She's like, "I am too, a lady." And I'm like, just because you go to ladies' lunches through church, you're okay, whatever. So I told her when she has the documentation. So for her birthday, she found this thing where she bought a 12 by 12, 1 foot by 1 foot piece of land in Scotland that they're going to plant a tree on. And she now has the paperwork that she is a lady. When you have land in Scotland, apparently you get a title. So I officially have a lady in the house, and she's let us know. She's like, she now like
a lady of the manor.
Yeah, she like gets on her screen, and this is how she goes through her Facebook. Isn't that right, lady?
What I should have told her is that since they named the entire country after me, that she's going to have to pay me taxes on that land now.
There you go.
She's already checked it out. There's no property tax in Scotland. Sorry, man.
You haven't seen Braveheart, have you?
That was 800 years ago.
Freedom!
There's a tree tag.
That's a great movie, but it's so historically inaccurate, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's bad.
Well, movie, I didn't know that. I didn't know William Wallace was Australian. That threw me off. But anyway.
Though it always amazes me that movie just reminded me of the word defenestrate. Do you know that word?
Is it where the king gets the privileges on the wedding night?
No. It just means to throw someone out a window.
At a window, yeah.
That was what happened to that one guy. And it just amazes me that it must be that so many people have been thrown out of so many windows that they needed a specific word for it. They couldn't just say that guy was thrown out a window. They needed like a word for it. I'm just like, that's crazy.
English is a very interesting language in that it will find a word, whether it originates in English or not. If it doesn't, it'll go find some other language and steal that word for its own purposes. For everything. Yeah.
Defenestrate sounds French, but it's like, come on. Mine in the comments says from the Latin fenestra.
Well, the thing, again,
yeah. I was going to say fenestra. That's where sinestro comes from. So
you're making me think of another movie.
Yeah.
You're making me think of another movie from the 90s. Had John Travolta in it. It was called Broken Arrow, and it's a military term for we have a stolen nuclear bomb. And somebody in the movie, I think it might have been Christian Slater, said exactly what was going through my head in the theater. You mean to tell me this has happened enough? They come up with a term, for a stolen nuclear bomb. How many times has this happened?
Well, there's protocols in the military for stuff you would not believe that.
I know.
Probably has not actually happened.
Well, that leads us to
they have contingencies for it.
That brings me to how many people got thrown out of how many windows before they came up with a word for it.
It's
at least one.
This conversation is the snake that eats its own tail. It just comes right back to the window throwing.
And that's a word I'm not sure how to pronounce. The name of the snake, it's Orubus, Ourobous. Yeah.
But like Gonzo said, he said, has anybody made up a word for friends who haven't met yet? I mean, that's the one I've been waiting on, He actually says, is there a word yet? So I don't know. I think I saw something where you put up books you got this week. Do you have those handy, or are you wanting to show those? Or
let's see. The first book I got this week is The Boys, Dear Becky. What issue number is this? 6. I continue to enjoy The Boys, but it's kind of pointless. in that all the story takes place in flashback, and I don't know why. I don't know how it's going to end. Is it just going to because in the story, Huey is reading Butcher's journal, and he was trying to keep it from his wife. What was her name? The Super Liberty, or I can't even remember what Star Girl. I can't even remember what her name is.
I knew. What was it?
I know it. I don't know why I can't think of it.
Oh no, they're talking about the boys. Starlight.
There we go. Yeah. And he's trying to keep it from his wife, Starlight. And in this issue, she finds out about it, and they don't know who sent him the journal. But it's kind of like the story is him reading the journal surreptitiously in the bathroom, which his wife figured out because he was spending out too much time in the bathroom. We find out this issue, and it's telling a story of the boys from before Huey joined them. So it's
right,
a prequel sort of thing. But it's like it's weird in that I don't know how the two parts are going to relate. I mean, it's a good story. It's a good story of the boys, but I don't know how the past and the present are going to relate. You got
to kind of watch Garth Ennis.
What was that?
Garth Ennis. Well, you got to kind of watch Garth because, like, he may give you a happy ending every now and then, but he's such a fan of westerns. For all you know, you could get a Butch and Sundance Kid into that one. Like, how did he pull that off?
And they obviously decided to put it out because the TV show is here and is a hit. Now, I'm fine with that because, like I said, I enjoy it. It's just kind of, for somebody who's not a boys fan already, I don't see the point, kind of thing.
Well, I'll tell you what's wild is the first season of that show. I mean, I'm a boys guy. I've got going back since it came out, but the first show was like the first 3 or 4 episodes were dead on. It hit a bump when they were like out in Kansas with an evangelist or something. That was a weird one, and then it like turned into a little bit like supernatural. It had like kind of got away from the the book showing you the tone.
Right.
I got an echo. Does that mean?
I don't hear an echo.
Check. Hello. All right. But I can hear it's probably me. But anyway, let me turn my stuff down. But anyway, the second season, man, it's been out for a while and I can't get past the third one. For some reason, it's just too slow right now. I'm hoping they switch it around.
I enjoyed it.
But I thoroughly enjoyed that first season.
To me, it's it's the low budget version of the comic because they can't have all the superhero stuff in it. But they did some good machinations in it in the second season. Once Stormfront shows up, it takes off more. Let's see. The other one I got is Norse Mythology.
Nice.
And this one is all drawn by Craig Russell does the layouts, but I think it's all drawn by Jerry Ordway.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
And it's a pretty straightforward Norse mythology. They're just telling the stories of Norse mythology. And it's well done. But
did Craig ink that, or did he just do the layouts?
He just did the layouts, I think.
Okay.
Let me even check. It says story and words by Neil Gaiman, script and layouts by Craig Russell. Art by Jerry Ordway, it says.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Jerry Ordway.
Yeah, that's the title I definitely want to get.
I can't believe that he's creeping up on 40 years in comics. That blows my mind with Jerry Ordway.
Lots of people are creeping up on 40 years in comics.
Yeah.
So
wow.
And then you got guys like Keith Giffen who stayed so relevant that it'll blow your mind to find out he's like creeping up on 44 years maybe. It seems like some of the first stuff I saw from him was like when he actually had a style that nobody probably recognized. He kind of had a style like Bob Layton drawing, like on Claw, The Unconquered. That's where I remember seeing some of noticing his name.
I remember first seeing him on the Defenders when he was doing a Kirby thing.
Mm-hmm.
Around issue 50.
He's always quit that Kirby thing. Yeah. Between OMAC and issue of Starbrand that he did, there's been times where he did that Kirby, Kirby style on purpose. And, he gets pretty close to it. I got a Legion of Superheroes annual for like about, around the 52, I think, that he did it. he did that Kirby style in the Legion of Superheroes, and I was just sort of like, that's kind of that both works and is weird.
Here's something to make you feel old. Both Kaluta and Barry Windsor Smith are closing in on 50 years in comics now.
Yeah, and I think Windsor Smith might be over 50 years because I swear I think he came in at the late 60s. So, 68, 69.
I'm not sure what his first published work was. I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, but
I wish they were. I was actually just thinking about, I don't know, I was mowing the lawn Friday and thinking about George Perez.
Yeah.
And how lucky he is. Because he was in comics for 40 years or something, and he came out of it all financially okay.
Yeah,
because he's got some evergreens there. He's got some. He's sold a lot of and so many other, like the guys you meant. Like, I don't think Jerry Ordway came, for all his talent and years in comics, I don't think he's come out okay. I think he's still month to month.
Well, and not to get off track, I mean, I totally agree, because people have got to realize when you go back, when Wolfman and Perez decided they're going to do Teen Titans was a joke. You know what I mean? It was not something you think you were going to, level up your career, doing Teen Titans. So, I mean, to consider that he came from a few Avengers book and whatever he could get a hold of back then, the White Tiger, whatever White Tiger was in back then, and then he turns around and does Teen Titans, and bam, issue 2, he's a star. He
even said when he was retiring, Perez, he said, "Don't feel sorry for me. I got plenty of money."
Yeah,
Infinity Gauntlet. How many guys can say that in comics, even with as long a career as Perez has had? Hey, Paolo.
Hello, Paulo.
Hey, guys.
Wow. How are you doing?
Good.
One of my True Believers books. I have always loved this cover.
I have that one ordered.
What issue is it? 141. First appearance of Doc Samson. It's like, Doc Samson and the Hulk are like dance fighting on this cover or something. I just have always liked it. It's Trimpe and John Severin insides. Good stuff. It's like I said, I've always liked this cover, so I'll pick it up for $1 again. I don't know if I have the original or not. I can't remember. I don't think I do. But I must have reprints of it.
Doc Samson is the guy that made me try to find a term for how I felt about it, because I love the character, and it was on the nose. He's the one that made me find on the nose. The guy's name is Samson, and the longer his hair gets, the stronger he gets. And I'm like, well, that's kind of. And I couldn't, as a kid, I could not find the words like that's. And then I heard on the nose, and I was like about 14 years old for the first time, and I went, that's it.
Herb Trimpe, another guy, he was in comics for 20, 25 years, 30 years. He got nothing out of it at the end. Just kind of like, wow. Perez really was uniquely lucky, as Sleepy
Kurt
said.
Swan's the way. I mean, if we're going to be talking about that, Kurt Swan's the one that broke my heart, because he ended up having to do a little bit of porn for Penthouse Comics to pay some bills.
Hey, Penthouse Comics paid well. Don't feel sorry for him for working there.
I mean, but it was very light. Yeah, it was. It was soft, very soft.
Right. They had a lot of talent working for them, and they paid well. And until it all came crashing down, and that guy jumped off the atrium, whose name I can't remember.
He defenestrated himself.
Oh my God!
That wasn't the window.
But
what was that?
Bob Gucciani was the publisher.
But I mean, there was a junior. Go ahead.
He was an editor at Penthouse Comics, and I actually knew him a little bit from my Marvel days, because he was a writer who'd come up and hang out in the bullpen to pick up work, and he was one of these guys who was kind of a little weird and a little sleazy, and kind of the women didn't really like him. He's the guy, like you've met him in the comics. Now, of course, you hear about him on Twitter being accused of things. But in those days, before the internet, you would just, there'd be some guys in comics who would come up and you'd be like, ooh, that guy's a little sleazy. And like, you could especially tell they're sleazy because none of the women liked them. The women would be like, oh my God, that guy's sleazy. And you'd be like, I kind of got that idea. But as a guy, you don't know because yeah, I remember that.
We talked about that on the show. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then, I didn't see him. I only knew him peripherally. He'd come up and chat every now and then. I didn't know him that well. And then I heard like a couple years later, he was the editor at Penthouse Comics. Mm-hmm. And this was during the boom years in the 90s. And Penthouse Comics, and I just would hear stories of sex, drugs, and rock and roll up in the Penthouse offices. There was all sorts of crazy stuff. Some artists doing work for Penthouse Comics would come over to Marvel and be like, holy cow, you won't believe what's going on up there. And I don't even remember any specific stories. I just remember that was the general vibe. And they paid well. That's why, Adam Hughes was drawn for them. Everybody was drawn for them. Until the crash happened.
Yeah.
And everything came crashing down. And the editor, I think, threw himself off I think it was a hotel, and there was like an atrium that was like 5 or 6 stories. So he like jumped off the building on the inside to kill himself because I think he was all messed up on drugs and his whole professional life came crashing down around him. So I was like, whoa. But don't feel sorry for the Penthouse Comics guys. They made a lot of money. Kurt Swan probably made more money working for Penthouse Comics than he ever made from DC.
The Penthouse Comics had so many redeeming qualities talent-wise and actually some of the stories that I wished I could review them on here. I really did.
Yeah, I never read many of them. I remember looking through them, but I just never – I don't even remember what they had just one comic, right, called Penthouse Comics.
Well, they also had a science fiction. They also had a science fiction comic too.
Yeah,
you had you had Penthouse Comics, and then they had I can't remember what it was called. It starts with an M, Maxim. Anyway, they had a second one start, and that was all Keith Giffen, Bart Sears with their team. And the very first thing they had was 3 monsters. One was foreskin. A giant foreskin like Godzilla. And then it was one, and then one was a labia, if we will say, and it went to Paris. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. It still had some scum in it, but the talent was great on it. And they had a few stories that were kind of deep. There was one that was actually stolen from me because it was a girl talking about what Kurt Cobain meant to her. So it had some moments there. But like I said, what was ironic was like around the time Giffen and Bart Sears and that whole team came over there, in my eyes, that's when they got the sleeves kind of went up a little bit, with the slapstick humor. It turned into like 7th grade locker room stuff. That's what it reminded me of.
This is the other True Believers I got, which is the first Black Knight, Avengers 48, right? Avengers 48. What was this? John Buscema? Nope, George Tuska. This is my favorite. This is almost my favorite Magneto. I think George Tuska drew.
Really?
I like George Tuska, Thug, and Magneto. I always liked him. He was like the 70s Magneto, where he wasn't this noble Magneto that we got later from Chris Claremont. He was like a straight up thug. And that's how George Tuska always drew him here too. And I think there was a couple appearances he may have drawn him, but I always liked Thug Magneto best for stuff. There was no subtlety to him. There was no pretend. He was a villain. There was no pretend. Oh, I'm a noble guy out fighting for my people. Nope.
Well, the first time that happened, it wasn't even during the Stan Lee days. It was when in the Roy Thomas, Neil Adams stories. That's when they tried to give him a little bit more personality, but he was still. I remember he was still very, very personally focused on his motivations. So he was not as noble as you say, like in the Claremont days, but he definitely had a little bit more of personality, and especially it kind of helps because Adams was the first guy to draw Magneto's face.
Right.
In that Savage Land storyline. Yeah.
Where did he get turned into a baby? Is that
was in
Team-Up?
Defenders.
Defenders? Those Defenders
Well
issues.
done, Paolo. Well done.
Magneto, I remember.
Well played. I was about to throw out an answer for that, and I went, "That's not it." Wait, where did that happen? Actually, them trying to make Magneto noble. Yeah, in the 80s when everybody was all X-Men crazy, and around issue 200 of X-Men where they went to the World Court with Magneto in Paris trying to get him off of his charges or whatever they were trying to do. That's another one of the reasons I was not an X-Men guy way back when, like everybody else was. To me, Magneto is a bad guy. He's supposed to be a bad guy. Arcade is a bad guy. All these guys that were popping up in X-Men, I'm like, they're bad guys. What are you doing with Magneto?
And the last comic I got this week was another reprint, this time a facsimile edition. Avengers 57, the first Vision. We're looking for people who like to draw.
Yes, something about that book gets a huge emotional response out of people who just love that comic. That first appearance of Vision. I don't know if it's that cover that brings back the memories or what it is for. Yeah. But I have seen grown men almost tear up for having it in their hands again or something. I don't know what. Yeah. I mean, it's a great book.
This is John Buscema and George Klein. Great splash page, half splash of the Vision there. That's very cool.
Oh, yeah, I read it in reprint. I mean, that's a great story. That's
it's good stuff. I was like, you know what? I'll pay $4 for that.
I kind of wish that I could have read that story when it came out because the first appearance of the Vision, and he appears immediately in the splash page, fully formed. It's not like you're waiting for him to be revealed as the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever seen him before. No, this is the guy, the Vision. He appears on the splash page. Must have been an incredibly magnetic image for the people picking it up for the first time.
It just occurred to me that if you're going to have a Vision series, 2020 would have been the year to do it.
Mm-hmm. The Vision.
An optometrist joke. This one did not go well.
Oh, you didn't like the aqueous humor there?
No.
Hey, Paolo's your easy laugh out of this crew. So if you didn't get him, he loves
you need to focus your eyes on a different type of joke.
Okay, I guess we'll talk about the Lensman next time then.
Hey, Becky,
Planetary somewhere.
George Tosca drew some beautiful air battles. I don't think he was crazy about superheroes. His love was in World War I.
There was a problem with the 60s guys, weren't it? Turns out none of them actually liked superheroes.
Yeah, I'm finding out more and more people. I mean, I knew there was people that didn't like superheroes, but I'm finding out more and more, and I'm like, how did you get in comics? But anyway,
because they got in before it was all superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, today's Ollie's purchase was for $8. This oversized hardback, the visual history of the Guardians of the Galaxy, going all the way back to the 60s, and it's in the Steve Gerber stuff with Gene Colan, and then it goes into the Valentino years and the Avengers years, and then it's like mostly the stuff that's happened over the past 15 years with them.
Does that have the Al Milgram stuff?
Yeah. It starts out. Let me find it. And that, here we go. But I mean, it's like early on, they get right to it. Like they'll hit you with a Marvel 2-in-1 kind of talking about it with the thing, and then you turn the page and there's the Al Milgram, Steve Gerber stuff. Oh, let me get it open. Hold on. It's still brand new and the pages are trying to fold. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Articles and stuff.
That's my Guardians. That Marvel, Marvel. I can't even remember what it is. The Al Milgram, Steve Gerber stuff.
Yeah,
from the 70s.
I think it was the Marvel Presents or Marvel Premiere, but that's mine.
Marvel
I mean, they're on the
Presents.
shelf behind me. I bought it.
I'd never read the original stories. The first time I saw the Guardians of the Galaxy, it was in that amazing Avengers cover by George Perez. When the Beast is beating up Charlie 27, that was the thing. I didn't know they had their own stories, and it was not until many years later that I found out about that.
Well, that
It
Marvel,
gets a whole page for that cover.
Okay.
That thing, the first time I saw that cover, wow, I gotta buy these. About this, who are these guys? I gotta know. I have to know. Vince Astro, Starhawk.
The Marvel Presents Al Milgram, Steve Gerber stuff holds up well too, because there's a lot of. That's probably the best Al Milgram art you'll see.
Yes, yeah.
And Steve Gerber did a really nice job writing it too. There's some really strange stuff in there, especially if you're reading it as a kid. There's some adult strange stuff in there that was like, whoa.
Well, it's here somewhere. It's usually right here where I can grab it, which means I'll find it after the show. But as a kid, there's a Thor annual with the Guardians of the Galaxy that, from 1977. That made me a fan of Yondu. I was a huge Yondu fan, like my entire comic book career here. So when I saw Yondu in a movie, I'm like, good enough. And just the fact that he's acknowledged in a movie, I was like, that's fine, good enough. So
I think it's funny that they took away his bow in the movie, but it makes sense. Right, because Yondu's superpower was he could whistle and control the flight of the arrow. But
the arrow was made of a special metal that reacted to a whistle. It wasn't
only
technology.
He could do it. It's not. Yeah, I don't think anyone could specifically do it. It wasn't. But the funny thing was, in a comic book, how do you represent whistling? So they would always have him whistling with his fingers to show him. But that would mean he'd have to fire the bow, drop it, put his fingers in his mouth. It's like the arrow would be wherever it was going to go by the time he got to whistle. Right. So it never really made sense. So they just dropped the bow altogether in the movies and he just whistled and the arrow went places.
Yeah. Yeah. But just seeing Yondu in a movie is always going to be surreal for me, even though it's not the Yondu. I mean, Yondu.
Tommy Bagley says, I think George Tuska was the artist on Iron Man when they gave him a nose on his faceplate. Did you ever hear the story about that? Which may be apocryphal. I don't even know. But the story goes that one day Stan Lee said, it's just sort of off the cuff, how come Iron Man doesn't have a nose? And what would happen is oftentimes people would take Stan's. I'm not even sure if he was working in the office at the time or he was in LA or going back and forth. But often people would take Stan Lee's sort of off the cuff comments as gospel. So they put a nose on Iron Man after they heard Stan say that. And then months later, Stan said, why did you put a nose on Iron Man? Because he, of course, doesn't even remember saying it because it was an off-the-cuff comment.
Yeah, from what I understood, I think yes. Where's his nose? Because there was a tendency to draw Iron Man's armor like it was a skin-tight costume.
Yeah.
So if you need to leave room on inside his faceplate for the nose to fit, and that's probably what he meant. And somebody understood. Oh, we need to draw a nose here. Of course, that's stupid.
He was just goofing around, though. He wasn't serious about them having to.
He was serious. I think people misunderstood what he said.
Yeah. Well, also, I know, I think I've told this story before about one of my friends, Scott Koblish, working with Stan in the 90s at whatever Stan Lee Media was. And he said even there, people would take whatever Stan said as gospel. And Stan would just throw ideas out, and then they'd do them, and they'd bring them back, and Stan would go, what are these? Well, and they go, well, that's what you told us to do. And he's like, you're not supposed to do my bad ideas. So it's people would take his idea. Even then, in the 90s, people would take his ideas, some people at least, not everybody would, but some people would take his ideas very literally because it was him saying them, and he wasn't expecting them to. And so I think that happened with Iron Man's armor too, if that story is believed.
Yeah, there's a Jim Shooter story in his blog about Stan saw the new X-Men for the first time, and he couldn't identify them by the name. He couldn't match the name with the characters, and he said something about benches are supposed to be female, Who's the idiot that came up with this? And the answer, it was Roy.
Look, I can forgive an Iron Man with a nose. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
we all have our awkward stages, right? But whoever gave him roller skates, that's the guy should be fired. Iron
That
Man
was
actually had roller skates. Just letting everybody know.
I'm pretty sure
Rocket
the first
skates, Mister. Rocket skates.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was still Stan Lee writing when he had roller skates. Wasn't it still in the 60s?
Yeah, it was still in the 60s.
I think he had.
No,
I think
he had those early on.
Yeah,
he had those rocket skates early on.
Okay, I'll go with that. I just remember when I saw it in the 70s. I'm like, "Are you serious?" You know,
they didn't bring those back for the disco era.
They never took him away. He fit right into the disco era.
Well, you know, and then Neil Adams had Skate Man. He got a whole issue. You know,
but he was his Skate Man. He was Skate Man, but he had rollerblades, didn't he? So that was more of an 80s thing.
No, he had skates.
I'm going to take Owen Neal's comment here. Needs more Bigfoot. Everything needs more Bigfoot.
Yes.
Everybody go to Owen Neal's channel after this and check out his Bigfoot musical in 5 parts, I think, which is fantastic.
This is the other book I got this week, which is Chris Ware's, what's the name of it? Monograph. Monograph. And it turns out it came out in 2017.
Yeah.
And I got it. You can get it from your comic shop right now for $30. And it's his it's his whole process. It's like an artist edition in places. He shows you his art. Whoops. Here's the original art and the printed version. He goes through all these little sculptures he makes too. And I'm going to make a video, but I haven't looked through it all. But I'm not a fan of Chris Ware's writing, but I love his artwork. And this is just filled with his artwork.
I'm trying to think of
good stuff in there.
I'm trying to think if Chris Ware is the guy that ended up doing some Doom Patrol covers after Simon Bosley quit doing them. Probably not the same guy. No,
Chris Ware.
He does.
Don't think he's ever done anything superhero related, has he?
No, he's never done anything for the main. He's a book designer. He wins so many awards for book design and best books, like out in the mainstream world. Jimmy Corrigan, the smartest boy on earth, is his. It's like every book Chris Ware puts out wins awards in publishing. But in the comics world, he doesn't do anything for like Marvel or DC or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think some things of his have popped up on the Instagram, if you will, here and there.
Yeah.
People showing off his stuff or something. But yeah, nice.
He did one book I didn't get about 2 or 3 years ago. I can't even remember, called like Buildings, where it's a graphic novel and you also take it apart and make it into a building. It's like, okay.
What is this? Al Milgram is one entertaining interview. I've heard some comic podcast with him on it. He just takes over the room. Hey, Scott, wasn't Al Milgram like signing books one time when we were down in the Carolina at a comic book convention? Was that Al Milgram?
Not that I remember.
Some old school guy like that was sitting there. We didn't really go and talk to him, but he was like,
are you thinking about Earl Norham?
No, I swear I think it was Al Milgram. I swear I do.
It might have been, but it doesn't ring any bells, though.
Yeah. Al Milgram's the guy where I think his best work was in Marvel Comics Presents. He's done all sorts of things, been everywhere. We talked about him before. Like, he just does it all. It feels like he's for the love of the comics. But he ended up doing this story in Marvel Comics Presents where it was an alien slug running around and feeding on people's fear. And the only way it was beat was in the last chapter, in the last panel, when he tried to go inside the Daredevil because he's the man without fear. Then the thing died.
I think that Guardians was his best work. I really like that stuff.
Al wrote, drew, and inked that story. It was like pure Al Milgram, all of it.
I always liked his editorials too.
Yeah.
His little comic strips.
Yeah,
I'd love to have a chance to interview him because I think he probably has some great stories to tell, and he knows where. I think he knows where a lot of bodies are buried.
Was he the one who got in trouble with
Marvel
Bob Harris?
Yeah.
When Bob Harris.
You talking about the Spidey one shot out of Earth X or something like that?
He wrote something on the books.
Yeah.
On a bookshelf, much like me. There's a Spider-Man one shot from I'm pretty sure it's either Earth X or Paradise X, but I think it's Earth X. And Bob Harris had just, I don't know, gotten fired, quit, whatever they had to do from editor in chief. So Al Milgram's like inking this book, and there's behind Ben, Uncle Ben, or somebody who survived or something. I think it was Uncle Ben. There's a bookshelf, and if you turn it sideways and looked at the book titles, it says something like Bob Harris is a prick. He got what he deserved, or something like that.
I still remember what it said. Bob Harris is gone. Good riddance. He was an STSOB. That's what it said.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah. And they caught it, and if you can find the book, they ended up pulling it in or something. If you're lucky enough to get a copy of it, you better look in there and see if it's in there, because I don't know if they pulled it or what they did, but there's very few. Yeah. There's not a lot of them out there anymore. Yeah,
I think they pulled it, but as usual at the time, Rich Johnston got a hold of it.
Yeah. I can see that. Man, that's going back like 22 years or 20 years or something.
It was before Rich Johnston was around.
No, he was already around. Rich Johnston was around in 1999, 2000.
This was before then, even.
It was before.
No. It's Paradise X was 2003 or 2004.
I'm trying to remember when Bob Harris got fired.
Was around the time he was still around for the first year of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Okay.
Because people think that Joe Quesada already came up with Ultimate Spider-Man. No, Bob Harris was still editor-in-chief when it came out. He stayed around for another 1 year tops, and that's when he was fired, so Joe Quesada could take over.
That ultimate line was actually a leftover idea of what Jim Shooter wanted to do at Marvel in 1986 in their 25th anniversary. He wanted to start everything over like it started in 1986, and that ended up becoming the Ultimate line years later.
That became the new universe, didn't it?
First, it didn't have a name like Ultimate Line. It was the idea of let's start everything over like it's now ended. And then you got New Universe, and New Universe was going to be huge because it was the 25th anniversary. And something happened in the politics behind the scenes where Jim Shooter was going back and forth, where they just pulled all the funding from it. So, here you've announced all this line, you've done all this advertisement. And that's why the books were lackluster. People who wanted to do them would come to Jim Shooter. John Romita Jr. said, I want to do a book with the New Universe. He went, why? These aren't going to pay anything. I mean, Jim Shooter thought the thing was the way he came off in the interview. It was like, okay, I got a job to do, but we're already dead in the water before we even get started.
Mm-hmm.
I think it had something to do with some people wanting to get rid of Jim Shooter. In hindsight, I think there was a lot of people sabotaging something, wanting to get rid of him.
Well, he got fired for breaking the chain of command.
Yeah,
he went over his boss's head to his boss's boss.
Yeah,
and you don't do that with those. You don't do that with those corporate guys. Yeah. The chain of command is everything to them because that's all they got.
We have it in my job, big time. Like it's got, we'll have people from Medicaid asked, did you use your chain of command? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can just imagine. Who is, hold on here, man. Somebody's messaged us in the group. Okay. Paolo has just let me know that he'll be here 5 to 10 minutes after we start. So we'll keep an eye out. I got that
message like 30 minutes ago.
It just came. It just popped up. Just popped up. This new phone that I've had for a couple months, I do not get message alerts. So but it just popped up. I watched the little circle pop up. So we'll keep an eye out for you, Paolo. So
because I was having dinner with a friend of mine who also happens to be a big nerd, and we were talking comics and pseudo archaeology and stuff. And I said, man, I really got to go because I have this internet thing.
I got the Americans waiting on me.
Yeah, that's what I said. I got the Americans waiting on me. Well, since it's comics related, it's usually 99% chance it's an American.
Do you want to go over the year's best comics?
That's exactly what I was about to ask about, since you had the idea.
Okay, so let me set this up for our audience. Somebody just scanned in all of the old DC Blue Ribbon digests. And I got them off the internet because someone scanned them all in. And this is, I think, number 5.
Well, hold on. Let's tell them what a digest is.
Oh, okay.
For people that, I mean, they haven't made them.
Want me to show them? Hold on. Let me go in the other room and pull them.
I could grab some too. But anyway, a digest was a little book where they would, DC would, 9 times out of 10, 99.9% of the time, if they would take some stories and they would put them in this little bitty, teeny tiny comic book that you could get for like $1. And there you would have going through the Doom Patrol, Adventure Comics, and they had a ton of them. This is the size they were.
Okay, let me put it up against a regular comic. You can see they're tiny.
Yeah.
Let me see if I got one around here.
And this is when Adventure Comics for a while published at this size. This is Adventure Comics 492. They actually published at this size. Was this some Alex the Black Canary? The Alex Todd Black Canary is reprinted.
See, it's thanks to those books I got to read some Golden Age Spectre, some Steve Skeets, Jim Apro, Aquaman. They were awesome. It was my main source and Silver Age Legion. Yeah, I mean,
these were like the only. There was no trade paperbacks in these days,
right?
So if you wanted to read old stuff, these would come out every so often. This is 82. I bought a bunch. I wasn't a DC kid, so I didn't buy a lot of these until like 1980, 81. I started buying them.
Yeah.
Oh man, and it's funny because to my 14-year-old eyes, these were fine. I was just like, when I was 14, it didn't matter that they're small. Now, even with reading glasses, I'm like, these are so tiny.
The other thing is, and I'm being serious, man, it's like you got to remember, if you shrink yourself down to the size you were back then when you found those. Your little hands fit on those much better also, Let me see if I got my Doom Patrol one. I'm thinking this is how I discovered the Doom Patrol,
And I got here one of those Brazilian comics that we had over here, Superman number 100 from Editora Abril.
These Adventure Comics had some new stuff in them and some reprints.
Yeah.
These to me were normal. This was the normal. This, how many pages? 132 pages for issue number 100.
Yeah. This is how I knew about it. This one reprinted the Sandman story by Jack Kirby where he met Thor.
Oh.
Yeah. The last issue of Adventure Comics.
And there's 100 pages in here too.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Then you have to admit that it feels really nice to have that small size with lots of pages.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I love these. I would get these all day long. Now, here we go. Here's the digest. That's why they called them digest. They put the little blue ribbon on them.
Right.
And this one is like they'd have a theme, Secret Origin of Superheroes. They would usually have a theme on them,
That's where I first read the Warlord stuff, too. I think they put out a collection of Mike Grell Warlord. Yeah. That's where I first got to read it, in these little digest. The Demos Saga or something, I think it was called.
Yeah. Secret Origins of Superheroes. This may be in the first one I got. 10 complete stories for 95 cents. 81. I don't know. That doesn't sound right. I don't see my Doom Patrol one, but this may have been the first one I bought with my money.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Swamp Thing. It's got the Swamp Thing origin in it. That's what I thought was kind of cool in this one, if I remember right. And I'm like, he's everywhere. Batgirl's origin. Yeah, this has got the Swamp Thing origin. This is the first place that I got to read the Swamp Thing, the House of Mr. Secrets 92 or whatever it is. Yeah. So the Atom.
All right.
But
let me share my screen so I can show them look at that one's in a bag. Ooh,
this one. Yeah, this one's mint. It's all kryptonite stories,
Mine are looking awfully yellow. It's old newsprint and stuff. All right, let me share my screen. Hold on. I'll hit share screen. Okay, that one.
Look and
Hit
see if
share. It's got to come up.
No.
Let me see if this works.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, I remember this one well. This was all over the place except in my hands. So,
This is the year's best comics, 1979. I have no idea what's in it. Let's see. We want to go that way. No, which way is our? Hold on. I got to go over here.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Now,
I can finally do this in full screen. They've added the full screen feature here. I'm on full screen now looking at this. This is fantastic. So
right,
then we got
arrow key.
Jonah Hex
Arrow
and
key.
Scout Hunter. We got the Wonder Twins.
14. Okay, now my arrows are working.
All right.
Okay, so the first one it looks like we have here is Superman and Sergeant Rock.
Is that from a DC? I wonder if that's a DC Comics Presents.
Yeah, it must be DC Comics Presents. We'll go back and look at the contents page at the end. Oh, Jack Abel doing the inks. Joe Staten on pencils. Whoops, I went backwards. There we go. So Superman goes back in time.
He could have just ended World War II there if he wanted to.
Easily.
This one must have gotten in because it was a World War II story. This because sometimes they're like, oh, we want the ones we want. Now, what is this one?
Then
Dead Man?
Garcia Lopez. Ben Oda.
Ross Andrew was the editor.
That's pretty good.
I don't remember. I wonder what this came out of. Some nice Jose Garcia Lopez artwork, though.
I wonder if it's from an Adventure Comics when they were like an anthology series there, oversized. I mean, I can kind of see it up there, maybe.
Yeah, this is 79. So wasn't World's Finest?
That might be. I think that's what. World's Finest and Adventure were big dollar book anthology series. So
I like that panel with that guy with a gun there. Some nice noir stuff going on. Nice little
noir.
girl too.
It's noir, and look at that. That looks like pre-Sienkiewicz, even though it's not Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
Sienkiewicz.
The panel with the girl in the bed is real nice too, and the girl in her nightshirt down there waking up and coming out to see what's going on. Very nice drawing. Garcia
Lopez, man. Yeah,
he is good, isn't he?
Yeah, I have his 4-issue miniseries that he did in the 80s of the Dead Man, and I've only kept it for his work. Story-wise, it wasn't that interesting, but the artwork, Garcia Lopez. I mean, you just sit there and flip and look at his art.
I was never really a fan of Dead Man stories. I was kind of like, he just like kind of take over people's body. I don't know. They never sat well with me. Him like taking over people's bodies for some reason.
I never read too many Dead Man stories. I only read like 2 or 3.
No, I could never figure out why they kept trying to shoehorn him in everything. They put him in Forever People. They put him in with the Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing for a while. He never really clicked for me until Alan Moore. I feel like it was like a TV show called The Fugitive, the original TV show.
Right.
It's funny how many panels there are of guys pointing guns in this issue. There's an unusual amount of panels of hands with guns.
Well, it's called gun porn. It's a
we got some Jonah Hex, Michael Fleischer, and Luis Dominguez. Ross Andrew edited this one too, The Minister of the Lord.
Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, man, I just did not read a lot of war in Western comics. So if I did read one, it ended up being, really.
Jonah Hex. I remember they always told that thing over his lip. They always called it a scar. And I was always like, that's not a scar doesn't go over your lip. That always confused me as a kid.
I always kind of figured that. Yeah, I was like, his flesh must have melted. That's what I always thought. I was like, that must have been painful. I wonder if he shaved. I was worried about him shaving and cutting that thing.
That guy right there with the hat on just reminds me of nobody drew like random Mexican villains like John Buscema. Whenever John Buscema was running some Western or something, it had like random Mexican villains in it. Like, they always had like the tall, sleazy guy with the mustache and the short, fat guy. It was just like he had such a repertoire of random Mexican villains. And of course, there were never any Mexican heroes in the story. But that guy reminds me of one.
Zorro. Zorro should have wrote in.
Yeah. Some nice artwork in this one too by Luis Dominguez.
See, that name is not ringing a bell, but I recognize some of the artwork. You know,
I remember him from Jonah Hex. That's the only place I remember him from. And as you can see from these scans, the black plates were not very solid in this stuff. The black plates all have holes in them.
I see a lot of John Severin in there and a lot of Kurt Swan. Like that first panel, that's a Kurt Swan, but we went back a page or two. There's something looked like a little bit of John Severin in there. I wonder if that's just coincidence, art of the era.
Right. And Western stuff, too.
That must be Scalp Hunter sneaking in there, it looked like. I mean, probably not, but.
A random Indian character. Who knows?
Yeah, random. It's random. You're right. Yeah,
so,
I saw that. I saw that first Yeah, I saw that first panel on the second row, and that was just enough to make me think Scalp Hunter.
Yeah.
Plus, he's on the cover of the book, so I was, looking for him.
It's a pretty long Jonah Hex story.
Especially in a little digest issue. I couldn't have hung in with that. I could not have hung in through that whole story, man.
Only Jonah Hex still lives. Little Superboy action.
Little trivia. The Jonah Hex movie was played, Josh Brolin played Thanos, Cable, and Jonah Hex.
This one's some more Joe Staton with Frank Tremonti over him. Ben Oda doing the lettering again.
I'm convinced Joe Staton could do a 15-page book in 12 hours.
Did
what
Superboy
I like about
have his own comic in '79?
E-Man? You thinking E-Man?
No, I'm thinking. Did I was just thinking? Did Superboy have his own comic in '79? And then Paolo was saying something.
Yeah, go ahead, Paolo.
No, I was saying that Staton is a guy whose art always is difficult for me to pin down because he has a great sense of composition, but his figure work is very dependent on who's inking him, because his art does not usually look the same from book to book.
Look at that Superman face in that upper right panel.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not Superman. It's a random guy. Pardon me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Joe Staton is somebody like I don't hate his work, and it's cool that he's got a huge body of work. But it just by the time he got on Silver Surfer around 87 or something, I was like, and he was doing Green Lantern, I couldn't stand looking at his stuff. I was like, that's enough. But anyways, in '79, you had Superboy sharing a book with the Superboy and the Legion, I think, around 80 or 81, issue 250 or something, 251. Legion took over that book, and you had the new adventures of Superboy pop up with Schaffenberger and maybe Carrie Bates or somebody. So,
I met Joe Staton at a few cons. He's a very nice guy.
Well, I've had I think 2 conversations with him. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just getting ready to say he'd been to HeroCon several times.
Yeah, he's really nice. I did ask him what the consummate Joe Staton work is. Like, if I told me all the work you've done, what is the one book that says Joe we should get? And he told me, and I completely forgot it. It kills me to this day.
Jonathan Kent succeeded where Jor-El failed to save his home and friends from destruction. That's why this
back
in the
day. Got it. Back in the days when Jonathan Kent's greatest superpower was the lecture.
That the mouse of history.
Nice.
No relation.
This must be
no relation.
Some comedy when they like.
Well, it's a pun on the House of Mystery.
Well, look up at the top corner there. You got Kane. So this is from House of Mystery for sure.
Right. Yeah. Don Thompson wrote it too. Look at that.
Yeah.
From
wait a minute. I want to Mega. I know. Wait a minute. I know who Don Thompson is. Hold on.
Don and Maggie
Thompson. You done gave it away. I was gonna.
I did.
Hang a little while.
I got tired of watching him suffer.
No, I'm still suffering.
Now that you
what is wrong with me,
Tim?
I know who it is.
You know Don and Maggie Thompson.
Yes, I know the name. I'm just having a brain.
You never see Don and Thompson together because it's always and Maggie.
Right.
Yeah.
Tim, Don was the editor of Comic Buyer's Guide.
Yes, thank you. Oh my God, thank you.
I've got two issues. The guy's own devil painting jumped out at him. Who doesn't like that?
That's awesome. That's straight Twilight Zone right there, man.
Absolutely.
And of course we have Batman, a Denny O'Neil Batman story.
Don Newton and Dan Adkins, going back to Crime Alley.
I think I have this story. This very story. I believe I have.
I don't think I've read that one.
They're trying to get a little Neil Adams feel in there.
Yeah,
it's called Crime Alley. Don't go in there.
What could possibly go wrong?
Don't use anything named Crime Alley as a shortcut.
Yeah.
Don't take the long way.
It's such a nice neighborhood.
Yeah. You've got the regular lobby and you've got Crime Alley. Which one are you going to take? Take the regular lobby. It's not Scylla and Charybdis.
That Gotham that they're showing there down that alley, man, that looks like a straight up third world country, man. That's it's 70s. That's those 70s ghettos, So
if it's Crime Alley and Death Alley, take Crime Alley. If it's Crime Alley and the lobby, take the lobby.
What if it's Kirstie Alley?
Rules for life.
Oh, what decade? I was like, depends on the decade.
That is a weird Batman kicking down on the bottom.
Yeah, that's a weird.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you.
Batman dance kicking.
Sweep the leg.
My legs were in the same position going horseback riding today with those stirrups. I'm telling you. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you for something that's supposed to be the year's best. This is sad. I mean, if you really for that title.
Let's keep in mind it's 1979, not DC's best year, which is why I'm fascinated by what's in this, because it's like I was buying no DC comics in 1979 as a 13, 14-year-old kid because they were mostly terrible.
Well, I'm surprised they put out a digest that didn't have a Legion story in it. Oh, look at them! Look at those bad ears in that bottom left corner. Look at those freaking bad ears. That's they're going Wolverine. They're trying to sneak in a little Wolverine there or something. Oh man, that is so bad. This is really bad.
Batman saving a random woman from her husband.
Look, he busts in the door to do it, and the guy doesn't quit. He's not freaked out that there's a guy dressed like a giant bat that's just broke into his house. He's like, I got to finish beating my woman.
Well, he's obviously drunk, so his judgment isn't that great.
Well, you're nice. I was going to go straight drugs, but you're saying alcohol, so okay.
Well, he had a bottle, so I figured he finished the bottle, and he's like, I've got to hit my wife with this empty bottle. Because that's what you do when you're drunk.
So that's the difference between you and me. I'm still gazing at the bad ears, and you're like able to take in the rest of the room. That's cool, man.
The angst. This is an angsty Batman story. That's why it made the best of. No,
they got some. Is that a villain? Is that a villain or just somebody in a gas mask? Is it the Firebug?
No, I think it's just guys in Long John Logan.
Oh, wait a minute. Now I see the guy in the foreground. I see now. Well, thank goodness they gave it a purple sky behind him so we could see him out of the shadows. This is really bad.
Don't mess with me. This thing is full of poison gas. And you were about
Maxie
to tell me in
Zeus.
the ventilation system. I thought
Maxie
he just had
Zeus.
a giant print.
Yeah, Maxie Zeus is the gang man, is the gang leader here. So he's probably thinking he's making Hades again or something. Maxie Zeus feels like he came right out of the Batman 66 show.
Mr. Zeus. Oh, he even used the word meddling. My plant at police headquarters says that Batman succeeded in his meddling interference. He's a Scooby-Doo villain.
And I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling bat.
I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, cool. All right, this is I don't know, man.
Batman leaves him a note where he did a sketch.
I don't know.
I wonder if you can sell that as original art on eBay. Yeah, Batman sketch, $50.
Straight out of the comic, out of the best of '79. Man,
Bob
skip through there.
Take,
This is pretty
credit
bad.
for it.
That's it. And, of course, the last one's got to be a Superman story. Carrie Bates and Kurt Schaffenberger.
Yeah, I have that Batman story somewhere, and there's a reason. Like I haven't even went back and reread it. It's in one of my
Hold on a second. The bird is giving away Superman's secret identity.
Cocaine.
This is why I was
I
not
guarantee
comics.
it's the 70s. It's the 70s. They probably watched some TV show that we don't remember, and that was one of the 7 plots of a television show. The talking bird talking to people.
How do you know that the bird speaks the truth?
Clark? Great Krypton, that bird knows my secret identity. How is he going to get out of this one? Super hypnotism, I bet.
You've been living on Earth since age 2. Stop saying Great Krypton.
And the bird knows it because he was talking in his sleep. He's got super talking in his sleep powers.
And how do you know that the bird is speaking the truth about his the identity? Because the bird is the word.
Oh no, is this sniper going to get the bird instead of Clark Kent? Let's see. Let's turn the page and no.
Cruelty to animals.
What did he do? Some super suction breath to draw the slug away from Samantha and into my mouth. And then he spit it back into the gun.
The plot literally sucks.
Literally. I'm more surprised to find out that Superman is a spitter. We're losing all kinds of viewers on this one, man. We're down to 4. Everybody's been abandoned.
Man.
Let's move on. This book sucks so bad. People
you want to know why Superman wasn't any good in the 70s?
I think we need to be streaming on Pornhub.
This is the best Superman story of 1970. I got to see what.
Can you imagine what the other ones were like?
Down to 3.
Hold on.
Down to 3 people, Jared. People are leaving. This is so
He's dressed up as a giant bird. Why is he dressed up as a giant bird?
Man.
One last story, The Haunted Tank.
Yeah, let's cleanse the palate with something better there.
Sam Glasman. This one's probably good. Jib Stewart of The Haunted Tank. Some nice Sam Glasman. Sam Glasman was a solid artist. A haunted. Oh, we have one more. Here we go. What is this? Papa Don? Artist? Molly somebody?
Who's the letterer? Who's the letterer on that?
Probably Ben Oda. He was all over and everything.
No letterer credit.
I just wondered because that story title looks very familiar.
It was very underground artish. Another Superman story. This one goes on. The Fall and Rise of the Star Child. At least this one's Kurt Swan. This is being conveniently translated for the reader. Okay. Some nice artwork in this one.
Slovenian?
Is that the Parasite or somebody?
No, I think that's his name's no, he's like a walking star, dwarf star or something. Let me look at him here. He didn't have a lot of he's right on the tip of my tongue of what he's called.
I think he's the Golem, that's what it says here.
Might be.
Great Krypton. It's all over. Oh, look at he punched Superman, so there's nothing left but his suit. The Parasite.
There's the Parasite. Yeah, but that character there that he was fighting, he made it into Who's Who or something. That's why I know who he is.
But the Parasite was really Superman. I don't know what's going on in the story anymore. Here's the cover.
Why do you have a Superman, Supergirl story and no incestuous overtones?
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a relay of what's been going on. We got down from like 11 or 12 people down to like 3, and now we're going up between 3 and 5 because people are popping to see if we're done torturing them with DC Comics in 1979.
Oh, they love it.
I'm not going to lie to you. This was a lot of fun, but when we got to the bird, that's what I was out, man. All due respect, but when we got to the bird, I'm like, oh my God.
And now you know where DC got the bullet logo from.
It's stuck in the side of the It's the back. It's the back of the bullet that's stuck in their head. Oh my God!
There we go.
Gary, is everybody okay? Are we all right? Let's do
the best of 1979.
Still better than the Jungle comic we reviewed several weeks ago.
I think the Jungle comic was better.
Yeah, the Jungle comic was better. I think that Superman was
the best thing
giving away his identity.
We just needed more leopards.
There are more people chucking spears at stuff.
I'm going to tell you about that digest book you showed was the cover. That's it. You don't have to go any further. They should have made a poster of that.
They should have retitled this Undigestible.
It just goes to show you how crappy DC Comics were in 1979. That's no joke.
Wow, that hurt. I'm doing some. I don't know. Maybe I'm having a flashback or something. I don't know.
Hey, Mr. Gretzky thought it was awesome.
And now we get it now. And now we turn around and think about what happened a year later. It was the arrival of Roy Thomas, Marv Wolfman, George Perez. It's all coming together now. It's all coming together.
That's when I did not start buying DC Comics until the Teen Titans started.
Yeah. How to make DC better. Just hire Marvel writers.
And even I started buying some action comics in the early 80s too. That I think Wolfman may have been writing it and Gil Kane was drawing it. That was some solid stuff.
When Marv Wolfman came to DC, what's come out over the years and the interviews and people talking and stuff, Marv Wolfman showed up with a plan. He showed up with a plan. He started planning Crisis. He started planning some stuff with the Titans. He started planning some stuff with Batman. He planned all kinds of stuff. It was his idea to bring Byrne onto Superman, and his idea to make Lex Luthor a corporate monster and get away from all that stuff. I mean, Mark Wolfman did a lot more shaping than we thought, and thank goodness,
Yeah, I was never a fan of the corporate monster Luthor, but I wasn't much of a Superman reader either, so it didn't really matter.
Well, he never felt like a threat. It was just a whole bunch of mouthing off and getting other. I don't know. It wasn't real confrontational.
I preferred Super Scientist Luthor. At least he could do something. It's nice to have Tim back on play. I watched your 2 videos, and
I appreciate that, but what I've noticed with the numbers on that, granted it's been years and I haven't really made a whole lot of videos, but I'm very happy that everybody, all 28 people who asked me to pick those back up over the last 28 years have popped in. So I appreciate all 28 people watching those. I'm going to finish it out, man. It's kind of cool to read Planetary again, but after I was reading some of his Stormwatch from Wildstorm in the late 90s and stuff, I didn't quite grasp how anti-American some of those stories were. And now I'm like, oh, wow, why didn't I catch this the first time around? I think I haven't read it.
I think they were anti every Earth government kind of
nation. That's what came later.
Right. They were anti-American. Well, I think that was just also because America. They were kind of anti. What was weird was they were kind of anti-globalization, but they were like a UN organization. And they were anti like big governments interfering with other countries. But it was written by, from an English point of view, which is the most interfering country ever.
Right.
So it was interesting.
That's what I wanted to say. I didn't want to get real political. But I was just sort of like, now wait a minute there, Warren. Me and Warren are going at it again, So
War and Peace.
But also Stormwatch was always Stormwatch I liked in the 90s, even before he took it. It was one of the first books to interject world politics into the story in an interesting way, because Stormwatch was a UN global organization, but they couldn't just interfere in other countries' affairs without special clearance or whatever. So they'd have to get permission before they could go in, and sometimes they didn't want.
This is gentlemen, we're going to be getting the next few weeks.
So there was all sorts of stuff going on like that before Warren Ellis even took over.
Yeah.
And of course, the head guy there, I think the weatherman I think he turned out to be evil after a while. I think, or it may have been Warren Ellis who made him evil. I can't remember.
Yeah, Warren Ellis made him evil.
Yeah.
Of course, Henry Bendix was shown as being adept at political manipulation, which was not the case with Jackson King.
And then Alan Moore made Battalion a nut job later on, just to let you know that half of Stormwatch ended up being killed or insane by the time it was all over with.
I read, it wasn't Alan Moore, but I read the Authority spinoff where they turn Jackson King into God. It was the monarchy.
Okay, yeah.
And it was
kind of an issue or two of that.
It was kind of confusing because the story doesn't actually have a point.
Yeah. Like I said, besides like the Warren Ellis stuff is my favorite. I also like the earliest stuff, though I haven't read that in a while. We read the Planetary for the first, but also like Stormwatch Team Achilles was a lot of fun. That was a decent series. That was the like military one.
Yeah. I'm going to tell the guy Enigma here that it's kind of cool that he got to sit down and read it. You didn't have to wait 10 years like most of us for all 27 issues. So on one hand, I'm happy for you, but on the other hand, I'm like, well, look at you with your comics place.
I have to say, like, I like buying monthly comics because there's only one chance to read it like that. Yeah. We had even though it took 10 years for him to finish the whole story, there was only one chance for it to take 10 years for you and me. Now everybody who reads it, it's a complete thing. They read it in a completely different way than we did when it took 10 years for it to come out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like 95% joking. You know what I mean?
I know. I'm saying, but it's like we can read it. We can read it now as its home thing. Like, we can. You once it's done, the chance to read it as a finished work is infinite. But the chance to read it as it comes out is
even I was waiting for the trade. I mean, I got all 3 trades and I reread all of them, waiting for number 4 to finally come out. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for me, I didn't have to wait too long because it was like they finally put out issue number 27, and the next month we had the volume 4 on the shelves.
Right. But what's good about it taking 10 years too is you can talk to all the other Planetary fans for 10 years. We come on here and talk about issues. You can, because that's one of the things I love going to the comic shop. And matter of fact, this last Wednesday was the first time I got to see my friend Rob since COVID started, who I usually meet at the comic shop every week. Like, Rob is my one high school friend I have left because I just wasn't friends with many people in high school, and he was a comic, and since high school we used to go to the comic shop together when he lived in town. He moved away, I don't know, when he got married 15 years ago now or something. So we'd meet at the comic shop and we'd hang out for an hour and we'd talk comics with, John or Roy and who work at the shop and whoever else came in. And that's one of my favorite things to do with comics is, talk comics with people. And because of COVID, both of us have been going on different days and just, popping in and getting our comics and leaving. So this week was the first time we actually got to meet up only for a few minutes, especially since he's on medication. So he's got, special risks when it comes to COVID. So he really doesn't want to be hanging out anywhere. But it was just like real fun just for even the 10 minutes we got to hang out to talk with Rob about comics again. And that's one of the good things about buying monthly comics is talking to people about them.
Absolutely. And the other thing about specifically like for Planetary, even though this book, 27 issues came over, 10 years more or less, and you never really knew when the next one was coming out, it still kept everybody interested. It almost kept people talking about it. Like you're talking about.
Planetary was also not a hit. It was a cult hit. Mm-hmm. Like The Authority became a hit. And I judge that by, once again, my friend Rob, who's much more mainstream than I am when it comes to comics, started buying, he never bought any of Stormwatch, and he started buying The Authority, I think, when it came out. I forget which volume. That's when I know stuff has gone from sort of cult to mainstream, is when Rob started buying it.
Yeah, there's one thing that people need to remember about The Authority. It was the first new #1 launched by Wildstorm after being bought by DC.
Ah, it was? Okay.
And it was the best-selling DC comic when it came out.
Oh, wow. Like I said, Authority was a genuine hit. Planetary wasn't. Planetary, I mean, possibly because it took him 10 years to get out 27 issues. But it's like,
Planetary.
All the people who were buying Planetary were interested in it from beginning to end, even though it took 10 years.
Mm-hmm. The way I remember it around here, Planetary hit because #1, first it was like Warren Ellis. It was Warren Ellis book. You had people who bought Warren Ellis stuff. Then when they saw what the book was about and where it was going, it was sort of word of mouth. So then it was like the people who checked it out and read it stuck around. So I told you, cult hit is exactly the word I would use to say what Planetary was. Then it started getting acclaimed, and I think it won an award or 2 or something, right? But it still never picked up, and it was killing them with the way it was coming out, and it was the trades that took off. The trades were close to going mainstream like you're talking about, but Authority, it never reached Authority level, if you get what I'm saying.
I find it highly ironic that, I started buying Planetary years and years after it was finished. And the reason that I haven't read the whole thing yet, because I was still missing the very last issue. So I was like there's a lot of irony there, evidently.
When I find those last issues in dollar boxes, I grab every one of them. I was like, even though it's a lackluster ending, I'm like, I earned this. Because I think I was around issue 2 or 3 is when I started collecting that thing.
I had just started when did Planetary come out in relation to Stormwatch?
Hold on.
I think both came out in 1999.
Okay.
Planetary came out at the same time as The Authority.
Okay, so I had actually read the first thing I read by Warren Ellis, because I actually remember talking to Marie Javins about this because I was at Marvel of that, and Marie had hired. Well, she was one of the first people to hire Warren Ellis to do Hellstrom, and I just happened to pick up an issue and read it around the office. Now I remember telling Marie, "Wow, this is good stuff. This guy's good." She's like, "Yeah, I really like him."
That was before Excalibur,
and that got me to start picking up Stormwatch when I saw he was on Stormwatch. I was like, "Oh, Warren Ellis is on Stormwatch. I'll pick that up." And from then on in, I would So that, I picked up Planetary as a matter of course because John Cassidy and Warren Ellis were doing it.
So you think he joined Stormwatch around 95, late 95, early 96? Because he was off Doom. He did Doom 2099.
Okay.
And then he left Marvel.
Right.
He did that Carnage one-shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came out as a true believer.
Yeah.
That Carnage one-shot, Carnage Mind Bomb came out last year as a true believer. I picked it up just because.
Yeah. This is saying Planetary #1, and there was a preview backup issue in a couple of Wildstorm books. Planetary #1, this specifically says February 3rd, 1999. The Authority came out with a cover date of May 99, so Planetary was first. But this was also around the time, I'm pretty sure ABC Comics was hitting with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen around the same time. I don't know.
But it was well after his Stormwatch, right?
Hold on, I can tell you.
Yeah, it must be because Authority came out after Stormwatch Volume 2. Of course it is.
Right.
He came on. Wait a minute. Hold on. My microphone just jumped at me. There we go. He came on the Authority around issue 38, did all the way up to issue 50.
Stormwatch.
And then you had Stormwatch Volume 2. That was 11 issues. Then you had that Wildcat one-shot.
So he was obviously on Stormwatch long before the Authority because the Authority came out. So yeah. So I started buying. Yeah, that's when I had started buying Warren Ellis's stuff as sort of a matter of course. Was with Stormwatch.
Yeah.
Then I had to go back and buy the Ron Lim issues. I don't even want them, but I'm.
But I know
you're breaking up. I think you lost your mic there. Yeah.
Me?
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Am I good?
You're good.
Right.
You're good.
We can hear you.
All right.
Whether you're good or not, it's a different story.
I don't know when I started buying Warren Ellis because I remember there was like a Thor issue, the Mjolnir was laying on the ground in the rain on top of a building. There's some, I can remember covers and people were like freaking out because it was Warren Ellis. But I think the first thing he wrote that I actually really did like, he did this Ultra Force Avengers crossover back when everybody was doing these amalgamations. And George Perez drew it also. There was 2 parts. And I was like, this is really good. He's really pulling off a cliche now. You know what I mean? And it's fresh. He made it fresh. That's what got me. We got people coming back up to us. I'm glad. He kind of rose to prominence as my interest in comics was waning for a number of years. And that would have been around the end of the Invisibles when Morrison was doing JLA. So that was around 98. Yeah. I think that was around. But
Grant Morrison's. I remember liking Grant Morrison's JLA. It was okay. He got to bring all the big superheroes back.
It felt like
he had the right idea.
Gardner Fox. It felt like he was tapping some Gardner Fox in there.
And the stories were primarily science fiction.
Yeah.
And then he did that Rocket. Huh?
I think I only read the first couple of story arcs though, because Grant Morrison was on for a while, wasn't he, on JLA?
Yeah, like
until
about 40 first 40 or some issues.
Okay,
and Mark Waid came in and did some fill-ins, but Rock of Ages was the one with Dark Side is the one that everybody went nuts over, and he ended up making that actually ended up being a prequel 10 years before Final Crisis. If you want to read the Final Crisis crossover that he did, you got to go back to Rock of Ages because it actually showed all of Grant Morrison's books secretly tie together. That's the problem with reading his stuff. You'll get lost if you know this. You'll get lost in trying to make sure all this really connects. So he did this Rock of Ages story like in 1999, 98, and almost 10 years later, you get Final Crisis, and they were in the world that Darkseid made in Final Crisis. Like he just put it all together. Yeah.
For some reason, I only read like the first 2 story arcs of that JLA stuff. I don't know why. Maybe I read the first 20 issues. I don't even remember. But Howard Porter drew those, right?
Yeah.
Porter was he was really good. But everybody went crazy about how Grant Morrison handled Batman in that first story arc. They thought he did. That everybody thought he did great on. That's all I heard was Batman on that last page with that white Martian and stuff. You know, I was like,
that's the JLA Batman I didn't like. I overlooked that. You know.
Yeah, but there's Batman and there's JLA Batman.
Right, exactly. Like the JLA Batman can defeat an army of Martians with a cigarette lighter. In his own book, he can't figure out how to beat the Joker or Killer Croc.
Yeah.
The thing about the art on JLA is that Howard Porter made several anatomy mistakes, and it was constant. And if it wasn't for the colorist, they would be more obvious. The colorist did a great job.
I remember him being a good storyteller and a solid artist, but not great by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
He was hit or miss with me. Like when he redesigned the Key, an old Silver Age JLA villain, and when he redesigned the Key, I'm like, he nailed that. He nailed that one. But then I can sit there and if I flip through it, I can find you another story where I'm just sort of like, he's not the guy for it. I can see these 2-page splash pages in my mind's eye. I don't know what issue they're in, but I can see the bad artwork and I can see the good artwork. You know, and I'm like, I was just picturing the further away he.
I was just picturing Tim flipping the pages and getting to one where a bird is revealing Batman's secret identity and going, "Oh,
nevermore."
Damn, that Howard Porter is anatomy mistakes. That bird doesn't look right.
I just remember whenever he would do extreme close-up of heroes, it was horrible. But if he had them kind of further away, like Aquaman looking down on the giant star with his eye as big as a continent, that was pretty good, you know. But then you turn the page and you got like Flash and Aquaman and everybody right in your face, and you're like, oh, this isn't good, you know. Yeah.
I got to get that issue of Superman and the bird just to go with my Supermobile issues.
I like I like what it took to get you to buy comics from either DC or Marvel. A 1979 story written by somebody on cocaine and hallucinogenics saying, you know what? I bet that bird.
If Superman talked in his sleep, that bird would know his secret identity.
We just got people coming back to the show. You're like, let's go back to 79 again, man.
Oh, if that bird had only been the San Diego chicken.
No.
That bird, I want that bird to morph into a real villain now. I want to find out it's a shape-shifting villain or something. You know, like I know his identity. It's it's really Plastic Man, you know.
If Grant Morrison hasn't already made him a Superman villain, that bird, then he's not going to get made into it. Because he's the one who'd do it.
Yeah, man. All right, let me go check on everything here. I'm supposed to be quitting right now, but y'all continue. I'm going to check things out. Hold on.
You see how things are going there. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever read the Superman story with the Supermobile from the 70s?
Supermobile.
That's one of my favorite. As a kid, I found it so absurd. It was fun. Some 70s story. I have it on my shelf. I bought it. Bought some good copies of it recently. It's some story where Superman loses his powers. So he builds himself a Supermobile with all his powers. And I think he has to fight a Mazo in the story. And the best thing about it to me was, someone builds a Supermobile, a car that flies, you put blasters on it. Superman put 2 fists that could punch. So Superman could fly around in his car and punch villains with his car. And I just love that stupid Supermobile, Amazo car, because it's just like, how do you come? The ideas they came up with Superman in the 70s were so absurd that 10-year-old Jared was just like, I knew they were absurd when I was 10. So that's one of the few issues I enjoyed because they were so dumb. And now we got the bird issue I'm going to have to add to that collection.
It's like they had to go out on top in the 70s with the dumbest idea they can come up with. They started the 70s with sand, a sand coming to life and stealing Superman's powers. It ends with the bird known as Secret Identity. That's hilarious. All right, guys, I'm going to have to wrap this up here in a minute. Just a few minutes here.
I'll find the issue some other time.
We're going to have to.
What's on the agenda for the evening?
I was so excited about that digest issue, man. I really was. I was like, here we go. We got in there, man. So, I mean, I kind of apologize if I poo-pooed on it, but oh, man, it was killing me. I'm like, what happened? I've got all these great digests here, and I'm thinking this is the best of 79. Here we go. You know,
I knew it had to be terrible, but just how terrible is...
Now you know.
I mean, let me check here the Mike's Amazing World of Comics to see what would be if Marvel had that series. What would be the best comics of 1979?
Whew.
Let's see now.
I'm hoping Yesterday Quest 79. Avengers Yesterday Quest. I'm hoping. I'm sure Beyond Byrne was on X-Men at the time. I mean, I'm totally getting how they were dominating. Mark Wolfman and George Perez were on Fantastic Four. I think they're on the Fantastic Four.
No, I think Perez on the event on Fantastic Four was a little earlier than 79.
78, 79, I bet,
yeah. George Perez drew a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see. There's
Amazing Spider, John Byrne.
Tomb of Dracula. Was that still going in 79?
Don't know.
Howard the Duck.
I think Howard had already ended because of Gerber leaving. And I'm not sure.
That started in 76. Yeah, maybe long gone by 79.
Okay, so there's Amazing Spider-Man number 194 with the Black Cat appearing for the first time.
Not a great period of Spider-Man, but that's a solid issue.
Okay, so that's it from Spider-Man. Let's see the rest. Damn. Oh, man. This website sucks.
What was the Hulk doing in 79?
Wait. Man,
roaming around having normal Hulk issues, nothing spectacular.
Probably.
I don't think.
He's having a banner year.
Avengers is having the Yesterday Quest. Marvel put out that parody comic with Billy Carter, Brother Billy, the Pain from Planes.
I do not remember that one at all.
I'm going for Avengers Yesterday Quest as the best Marvel book story.
Which one is that? Which story is that?
They go to it's where Quicksilver and Wanda find out Magneto, where they go to Wundagore Mountain.
Right.
And you have the Beast. You have the Beast flying around.
Stuff.
He finds some armor. Yeah, and he's flying around on a mechanical flying steed. It was fantastic.
Was Rom the Space Knight around? Was Rom the Space Knight around?
Would have been around that era, yeah.
Not much from Captain America. Here it is. Daredevil number 159. 158. Number 158.
Some Frank Miller.
Frank Miller begins. So DC has some story about some weird stories about Superman, and Marvel's putting out Frank Miller's Daredevil. Let me check out the Defenders.
It doesn't even compare. It doesn't even compare.
Was never a great comic, but it was always. Rom was never a great comic, but was always solid. I bet any random issue of Rom from 1979 was better than every comic in that best of DC.
Yeah, the Defenders is having the Fool Killer storyline.
Okay, that was decent.
In 79, the Marvel titles I was reading would have been the Micronauts and Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, Micronauts.
Golden and Micronauts kicking in. Star Wars had been around for a little bit, even though some of those books weren't, up to standard of the movie. But they were getting ready to stay.
Right. Fantastic Four.
For Boba Fett and The Empire Strikes Back,
Fantastic Four is when they start the storyline that culminates with the battle between Galactus and the Sphinx, but that's in 1980. So the storyline starts in 79.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. I think Perez popped in there, John Byrne popped in there, Keith Pollard, Walt Simonson did a cover.
What issue number was that? Is that past issue 200?
Yeah, it's like 20. I don't know off the top of my head, 206 to 214, something like that.
I always thought
They
the
had a cart-
Sphinx looked really cool, but was never really in any good stories. He never did anything really cool besides look really cool and grow giant.
Yeah, Hulk was in the Roger Stern run, and this year doesn't have that much. The Invaders end, and Iron Man begins. The Michelini, Leighton Romita arc.
Oh, that was good stuff. That Iron Man.
So yeah, you got the beginning of seminal Iron Man and Daredevil runs.
Yeah.
And DC
had a bird giving away Superman's secret identity and Batman going back to Crime Alley to fight wife beaters. Wow.
Oh, yeah. There's that great issue of the Marvel Preview featuring with a full length called The Destroyer story with that great Tulsa Doom cover.
John Bolton, who did the art on that? John Bolton? No, that was later.
No,
it was.
John
I think it was. Yeah, it was Sal Buscema with Tony DeZuniga doing the inking.
Ah, okay.
I tell you what,
I always loved that cover because even the Brazilians use that cover.
Speaking
now
of,
that I'm sitting here thinking about it, Teen Titans, All-Star Squadron, Gene Colan, Roy Thomason, Wonder Woman, Camelot 3000. DC, it wasn't so much they were like breaking new ground; it's they had nowhere to go but up.
Yeah,
seriously, there's nowhere to go but up. Anything was an improvement.
Oh yeah, Marvel Team Up number 79, Spider-Man and Red Sonja.
Ah, that was a good one.
Oh, I keep that one handy. Hold on.
To me, do you know what is a classic Marvel Team Up run that for me? Like Marvel Team Up.
That's scary. You just pulled that right. Wow.
Yeah. A classic Marvel.
Oh, go ahead.
I said classic Marvel Team Up run to me is like issue around 39 to 53. It ends with the trial of the Wraith stuff. And it starts with like Spider-Man and the Human Torch against gangsters. And then like Spider-Man is traveling through time and teaming up with people. And it's just like to me, that's like a classic Marvel team up run of about 12 issues. I think Sal Buscema draws most of it and Bill Mantlo writes it. And it's just like a tour de force of the team up concept.
Yeah.
Just because, and it all works so well for me. And I could also see why, people put Marvel Team Up as kind of the end of the the end of Spider-Man, the Ditko Spider-Man era too, because that stuff has nothing to do with like a Steve Ditko Spider-Man.
Okay, and if you wanted to put a quiet issue in that digest, Marvel 2-in-1 number 51. The first appearance of the Marvel characters poker game.
There was some good. Was that the Project Pegasus stuff? But
it was also that year, yeah.
And
it was also that year.
DeFalco were around. That was good stuff.
Yeah. Didn't Frank Miller draw that first poker game because he put everybody in shadows, and it was sort of like he did a poker game issue.
Yeah, it was Frank Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember looking at that stuff where it was so obvious where his art was going to go one day. If you look at that for what Frank Miller ended up doing art wise, if you're into like artists evolving and stuff, it was all in that poker game. I went back and read it and kind of laughed, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, Master of Kung Fu. First appearance of Zaran the Weapons Master.
All right,
is that the Mike Zeck stuff?
Yeah. Micronauts begins. So you have the entire first 12 issue arc. It's entirely in 1979.
Wow.
Has anybody here actually read the Shang-Chi stuff that came out? Because it was all over my house and I could not get into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love Shang-Chi.
So it was actually good. I mean, you understand, I'm like 6, 7, 8 years old. It's in the house. It just didn't grab me.
Yeah, I can see why. It's very British spy novel.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's what Shang-Chi really is. He's like a British MI6 agent, basically, and there's all sorts of spy stuff going on in it with kung fu fights. So I could see how that wouldn't appeal to someone that young.
Yeah.
And the Gene Day stuff is my favorite. I had some older issues, but I started with the Mike Zeck stuff and then moved into the Gene Day stuff. And the Gene Day stuff is my favorite of all the Master of Kung Fu stuff.
Fefner's here. Fedner. Hold on. I'm reading Masters of Kung Fu and the Epic Trades. I enjoy it so far. Those Epic collections,
they're really nice.
Yeah, not only they're really nice, but they're like flying off shelves, at least from my point of view. People are grabbing them and selling them for like $10, $20 more than they're worth before they even come out. I don't know.
You're not finding them in Ollie's.
Oh, no. I found one, like I said, I found two or three at Books A Million, and that's it. It's it. But those Epic Edition collections, they're fantastic. I really enjoy them. So I totally get it.
Okay, another one. Thor number 283. The Celestials join the Marvel Universe.
I'm going to look at
it's the first appearance of it's the first appearance of the Celestials and the Eternals after Jack Kirby finishes that series.
So I'm not a big fan of the Celestials, not done by Jack Kirby, but that story was well done. I mean, that whole arc where he integrated I think Roy Thomas wrote it, maybe. Mm-hmm. But that whole arc was well written. I reread some of it a few years ago, and
several writers. So Mark Grunwald starts writing it, but then he leaves, and then Roy Thomas comes in and right in the middle of the Celestials Eternals arc, Roy Thomas just decides to integrate Richard Wagner's opera into Thor's continuity, and it takes over a year.
Yes, that was good stuff, though. I mean, it was all well done.
The way I remember it, wasn't there like several issues of Thor kind of traveling around and discovering new elementals? I mean, all the way down to Mexico where they got the lucha libre style, and there's an Eternal with bullhorns coming at him. I mean, it was all over the place, man. I mean,
and then I think right before Roy Thomas got to Thor 300 in the end of the story, he left Marvel for DC. Yeah. So it was like somebody else, I forget who, did a decent job of it too, wrote Thor 300 and wrapped up the story.
I think it was Ralph Macchio.
Was it Ralph Macchio?
Yeah. So Tomb of Dracula number 70, the series concludes, and X-Men, there's the Proteus saga.
Oh, wow. There's so much to there's so much to choose from in 1979 at Marvel and nothing at DC.
I tell you what, I would like to think if I'd just been a few years older in 1979 and it was my choice to go down and spin around that spinner rack, that I had the good taste and good fortune to get the right stuff and not Superman and the Bird, Oh man, the 1979 Marvel, man. Oh, good stuff.
Changing topics a little bit, you just talking about Lucha Libre. I never really thought about it until just now. It seems like it would be a perfect fit if licensing worked out. Were there ever any comics with El Santo?
I don't think in America there was. I hate to be this way, but I don't think I heard of El Santo until Mystery Science Theater. Honestly,
right, yeah. But
so what we got here? Micronauts
and Rom are both solid comics. I think it was just 2 years ago or so I sold all my issues of Micronauts. They're in France now because I needed the money, and I'm like, I haven't looked at these in 25 years. I'll move them on to someone else. But yeah.
My advice is, these are some of these issues you could find in a dollar bin and it's beat up. Yeah. I would sample it first and decide if you want to go on. Because, like I agree with Jared and everybody here. They were solid reads. Micronauts never hooked me, but I totally got ROM.
Well, see, I'm the exact opposite. I always read Micronauts, but I never met ROM. But if you do end up searching for back issues of Micronauts, get them from the beginning. Yeah, because if you come in the middle of it, it's not going to make any sense.
Those are the easiest
Volume
ones to
one.
But yeah,
the Pat
I read
Broderick
both of
stuff.
them.
I want for the art.
You can divide ROM.
What was that?
You can divide ROM in 2 different chapters, because when they introduce the new designs, dire wraiths, that's when the comic kind of shifts, because now the dire wraiths mean business.
Right.
So you can start reading about issue number 50, and it makes sense.
Just for trivia's sake, I know the Dire Wraiths showed up in X-Men, but for some reason, it seems like I can remember them showing up in Avengers or something. Didn't they have like a mini little month of Dire Wrath invasion in a few books right out of ROM? Or am I imagining this? I mean, I probably was like,
remember that.
I think I was like 10 or 11 years old,
Yeah, when they start getting into the big showdown, they start popping up here and there. They appeared in an issue of the Avengers. They appeared in one of those in an issue of the X-Men that focused on Storm after she lost her powers.
Yeah.
Because then the other heroes become aware of Rom and the Dire Wraiths. So and that moves into the showdown, which I believe is in ROM number 62 or 63.
See, and that's interesting.
They're wraiths, not wraths.
Huh?
I said they're wraiths, not wraths.
Dire Wraith. Yep. Okay, it's cool. Yeah. I never heard anybody say wraith or wrath until my D&D years, man. So.
Okay, well, now that brings up an interesting. Sorry to jump in. All right, Tim, how do you pronounce the race of dark elves?
Oh, it's Drow.
No, it's Drow. Yeah. It is Drow.
I don't know, man. I've heard Drow.
Confirmed directly from Gary Gygax.
Is it in video?
It's print. Print interview. That was a big controversy for a while.
You see, I think it's still going on because my D&D career was actually dying right when you had mentions of the Dark Elves, like they weren't characters or anything. And right when I quit D&D because everybody just kind of split up and I couldn't find a good campaign, I found out these books by R.A. Salvatore.
Those come out a good while later. Yeah,
those books started about 6, or right when I was quitting D&D, and all of a sudden they took off. Blew my mind.
And doesn't Marvel own the Dire Wraiths? They don't own ROM, but I think they own the Dire Wraiths.
They do own the Dire Wraiths. After ROM ends, they have a cameo in the Avengers during the end of the Roger Stern run. And they kind of become a plot point in the New Warriors around the mid 90s.
Okay.
And then I don't think anybody used them again.
Just like Marvel owns Bug from the Micronauts, but none of the other Micronauts.
All right.
Marvel owns Ron without the armor, because the armor is Space Glider, and that's a Micronauts design. So they can use
concept. Yeah,
they can use Princess Marionette, but not her brother Argon, because Argon is Force Commander, which is also a design. So they can't use Biotron or Microtron or a Croyer, but they can use Bug.
Yeah, they can only use the characters they originally created, and none of the ones that came from the toy line.
Yeah, right. which is kind of weird. Figuring out what they can use or not. Right. They can use the Microverse, but they can't use their ship.
Mm-hmm.
The Endeavor.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Likely to never be reprinted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first 12 issues of Atari Force are really underrated. It's just a solid story, and Garcia Lopez's art. I can just flip back and forth with that.
Anything drawn by Jose Garcia Lopez in Atari Force, you'll like.
Yeah.
He's a master storyteller.
It's good stuff. Well, guys, we're at an hour and 48, and we got a few things to do around here tonight still. But I think it was a good show. A little painful.
Until the birds.
And pain makes us feel alive, It reminds us we're alive. Thank you for everybody that came back. But what are you guys going to be getting into for the rest of the weekend, or what's books you anything in particular you guys are looking forward to that might be coming out?
I'm not reading any Superman stories after that.
I
need to reread stuff.
I can't defend it, Scott. Usually I do point by point with you. I can't defend it.
I get it.
Let me see if I got my email.
Now that Grant Morrison announced to the world that he's bi-gender or whatever. Yeah, whatever. So I think I should reread The Invisibles because you already explained it all back then.
Yeah. Well, The Invisibles have got a lot of progressive stuff in there to begin with, but it's not extreme. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but it was kind of obvious. I mean, his self-insert under duress admits that he's having sex with the cross-dresser.
Yeah, boy, the witch doctor or whatever. Yeah, see, my thing is I'm just not a believer in any of that, but I don't sit here and bash it. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand it. There's people.
No, the thing is, it's obvious and everybody knows it, but he felt the need to announce it.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because it's 30 years of enjoying Grant Morrison work or hating Grant Morrison work based on that work, and whatever this is that he feels he needs to announce has no bearing on his work. And that's me personally how I approach it.
I was just wondering if somehow he's doing this to figure out some angle on pissing off Alan Moore.
The Brazilian trilogy, Venus as a Boy. Got it. Yes.
But in any case, I think that I need to get back to my idea that I should implant the idea on the internet that Joe Rogan needs to interview Grant Morrison.
Oh, that'd be cool. That would be cool. Well, you heard it here first.
Joe Rogan has said that he likes comics. Joe Rogan is friends with Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith knows comics people. It's just, Joe Rogan, please ask Kevin Smith to give you Grant Morrison's number and have the guy. Because I mentioned it once on Twitter, and one person answered when Joe Rogan asks Grant Morrison, so have you ever done DMT? Like he always does. Grant Morrison would respond, Joe, I am DMT.
Run DMT.
Run DMT.
Well, I just got every Saturday night at 5 p.m., I get an email from my comic shop telling me what's in for me that week. Ooh. I just remembered, so I looked at it. So the comic I'm most looking forward to this week is Red Mother number 10.
Red Mother.
I think that might be my favorite comic right now. Red Mother.
Awesome.
Slice of life horror. I think it was Sleepy Reader who compared it to Rosemary's Baby because everybody else around Rosemary knew there was horror going on, and Rosemary didn't. That's kind of like how this story is going. The lead character doesn't know all these people around her are in some sort of weird Red Mother cult.
I didn't know it till years later, but the very day I was born was the day that Rosemary's Baby got released in U.S. theaters.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. Apparently, he's scored a whole box of Alien Legion and Marvel's The Chuck Dixon.
I've heard a couple of things that I don't know are above board yet or not, but I've heard a couple rumblings that there might be some new Alien Legion stuff coming.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I need to check it out.
Is that creator owned or does Marvel own it?
Is
that an Epic book?
I think it's creator owned. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Carl Potts came up with it.
Well, I've been able to read a few extra books around here that have been sitting around forever, or I've collected them and wanted to wait until I had a big chunk of them, or I've reread a little bit. And the 2-3 things, first of all, the book I'm looking forward to is still getting to read this Last Ronin Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story. It's sitting there waiting for it to just be delivered to me. But the two things I've been reading, and one book has really surprised me. It's the old Epic line of Nightbreed comics after you get past the movie adaptation.
That was the 90s. There were a lot of them.
I've read. I've got like
a lot of well-known names that worked on that book too, in terms of the artists.
Yeah, I think it's D.G. Chinchester and Brett Blevins, and it's had a few people on it. But I was flipping through them about a week ago. I only have, I have a handful of older issues and stuff and I'm like, these are so much better than they should be. That was my reaction, and it'd been so long since I read some of them. I found that to be really good. Another little lost gem out there is and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's Cable. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's Cable. I got a little run here of Ladron and James Robinson on Cable, which is really good. It's just a really cool. It's almost like you could insert Nick Fury in there a little bit instead of Cable, just a little bit to kind of.
But Nick Fury does appear there,
huh?
There is an arc with Shield.
Yeah,
inside that run.
Right, and that's where I'm at. I'm revisiting those, and those are really good. I was trying to get rid of them, so that's where I'm at, and just cruising through the planetary. And I was getting rid of a bunch of Dreadstar, but I'm like, I might want to read them before I get rid of them, give them another chance, So I'm going back to the 80s, it seems like.
Speaking of Carl Potts, I got something I want to share with you, only because just like a couple of days ago on my friend's Facebook post, somebody mentioned something about reading that Carl Potts created Longshot, and he didn't. And Carl chimed in to give a brief sort of creation of Longshot history again. So I actually screenshotted his post just because I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Oh, so I got to see this, and then
share that, and you can read it. It says, "Hi, Steve. Thanks for putting in a good word for me, but the truth is that Anne and Art created Longshot. On my first day on the job as editor, I was going through a batch of unsolicited art submissions and ran across Art's work. It was like finding a diamond in a pile of coal. I contacted Art and began doing some visual storytelling and drawing exercises with him. Anne was my assistant editor when she first mentioned her idea for the Longshot character, and I showed her Art's work and suggested they flesh out the character together. That summer, while at San Diego Comic-Con, I reviewed Will Portacio's portfolio and eventually suggested he and Art team up. At some point, I did a rough design for Longshot that was not used. Art created the design that was used, including the mullet, so my role was more of an enabler. All of the creative development work on it was done by Anne and Art. The title was set in the X-Men corner of the MU, and X-Men editor Louise Simonson edited the original miniseries. It was very likely that she made significant contribution to the series. I thought that was pretty cool to read.
That is awesome. I love when they do. That's why I keep these guys on Facebook and stuff as much as I can. And try to talk to them to get all that just great, flat down and great. One little thing I'll add to that is that Art Adams, and I wish I took the screenshot, and it might be in a or something. He admitted that Longshot was based off of the guy Lamal who sings Never Ending Story.
Kosh Gugu.
Yes, he's with Kosh Gugu.
Push.
He's a huge fan. That's cool, man. But I think it was Rick Vetch or Steve Bissett, and I'd like to in the laptop that I had before this one. That one died before I really shared or anything. But I had one of those guys confirm that Swamp Thing 25 that people are sworn up and down as Hellblazer's first appearance. They said they put Sting in for fun. It's not
right.
And that's one of the few things that really drives me nuts with online comic book communities and stuff, ripping people off on that book. And I'm like, I wish I'd saved that screenshot.
And I know Jared said he doesn't care a lot for some of them, but if you ever get a chance to read an extended interview with Steve Bissett, it's well worth it. He knows a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's funny. I like a lot of interviews when I actually read them, but to get me to read them is tough.
Yeah.
It's a weird mental block.
For me, it has to be a creator I'm interested in.
So sometimes the creators I don't know anything about are the most interesting interviews because I don't know anything about them. So they've got all sorts of stories and angles that I've never heard before.
Well, I need to be tangentially interested, although sometimes even if I am not interested in their work, I might be interested in their perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I said, I've back when I was buying Comic Book Artist and Back Issue regularly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would make myself read them because I bought them. So it was like, I may as well read them. I bought them. And a lot of times I would have to go, oh God, I'm not interested in this guy at all. But then I'd start reading the interview and I'd be interested in him.
Right.
So, but to get me to read an interview is kind of like pulling teeth sometimes.
I was flipping through some stuff I had the other day and pulled out an old issue of Draw magazine that was also done by Tomorrow's. And it's got a long interview with Al Williamson in it, which I'd never read. I'm like, what is this? This is cool. I didn't even know I had it. So I've got that sitting on top of the to be read pile right now.
And there's a couple of interesting things in Carl Pott's little thing here when he says, my first day in the job as an editor, I was going through a batch of unsolicited art submissions. They always give that job to the newest guy because there's never anything in there.
Oh, wow.
That he found Art Adams on his first day is like lightning striking.
That's awesome.
Because nobody I'm sure as soon as he was not the low guy in his totem pole, he never went through the unsolicited art pile again. Because there's just never anything in there.
It's like being a slush pile for a science fiction magazine.
Yeah. Then he said, I contacted Art and began doing some visual storytelling and drawing exercises with him. Carl was the go-to guy for teaching artists how to do comics. In the late 80s and early 90s, he was always, they found some raw guy and wanted it, like Art Adams wanted to do. Carl was the guy to teach them.
They need Carl now so bad.
Yeah. Well, they stopped listening to him in the 90s when all those image guys got really big and no one cared about their storytelling.
Yeah.
It was the one that found the image guys.
Yeah, well, some of them.
But I think Wilson Portacio worked for him.
So now we know who to blame.
Well,
I was not there that day, but there's one famous day, it may have even been a week. All my friends were there, where they had, like in very early 90s, where they had before they were the image guys, they had the image guys in, and John Romita was trying to teach them some stuff about basic storytelling and things, and they just wouldn't pay attention. Wow. They didn't,
I'm sitting there thinking Carl Potts is like this missing scholar that nobody has ever, it's like finding out there's a fifth Beatle,
Yeah, they would have
Carl Potts is Pete Best.
They used to have all the new assistant editors, like that. Like there was maybe 4 or 5 new assistant editors every year or 6 months, and they would have like a special classes for them to go through, run by Mark Grunwald for the writing and Carl Potts for the art, and that's where they taught all the assistant editors how comics were made and how to make good comics. That ended sometime, Mark Grunwald died in 96 and Carl Potts, I don't know when he got let go in one of the Marvolutions, but it was somewhere around there, but they never did that again. Yeah. Now when I can tell you stories of in the early 2000s when, what's his name? Bill Jemis was the publisher. This mindset, they got this mindset where hiring assistant editors with no experience in comics was a good idea, because they didn't want people with any ideas about comics making comics. They were going to come with fresh new ideas. So they would hire these assistant editors right out of college who all went to, had literature degrees or something. And this is like 2000, 2002, whenever it was. And by that time, I was the old man of the bullpen. I was probably the oldest guy there in my mid-30s in the bullpen. And so I always had these new assistant editors coming to me, asking me questions. Like I've said this before, what's an inker? They had to hire inkers, and they had no idea what inking was. And it was just like crazy. It's like every assistant editor from that period, it moved on because they weren't comic book people. They were, and Marvel and DC notoriously underpay their, especially their assistant editors.
Yeah.
So it's like you're right out of school, you're going to take that low-paying job and then move on to get a better-paying job in publishing, unless you love comics and stick there. That's why I hear these stories about nowadays about there's a few assistant editors who are talking about how they left because of racism and there was no advancement. I'm like, I don't know about the racism, but there's no advancement if there's no racism. It's kind of like, if you're most assistant editors leave the position because there's no advancement and no pay. Throw racism on top of that, and I can understand you. But it's like even if there was no racism, you're probably leaving.
I got a comment I'm just biting my tongue on, but anyway.
It still just blows my mind. What's an inker?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And they were terrified. They were like coming over to me. They're like, "What's going on? What's an inker? I have to hire an inker. What's an inker? Who's like?" And I'm like, and that happened 2 or 3 times.
It's like hiring an assistant manager for the New York Yankees. What's a catcher?
Yeah, exactly. But that's who they were hiring.
Wow, my mind just exploded.
Yeah, and I would have to explain the job of the inker.
That explains so much, or at least the last couple of years, big time. Yeah. So, oh my God.
Matthew Rasco just mentioned a Shazam scene in The Boys, Dear Becky.
Is this it?
That's it. I guess you mentioned this was scrap. Oh, well, what it was this was a flashback to the boys were had to neutralize this Shazam-like character, so they cut out Billy Batson's tongue, so he couldn't say his magic word.
So now he just goes around saying "Shazam."
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying.
doing
I'm
that.
like, could he do it? Oh man. So apparently that goes back to Hitman in Section 8, and it sounds like he finally did it. And that's cool. That's all right.
Nah.
Oh man. Well, guys,
Jared,
I'm gonna have to.
You should track down the original art pages for the Superman sucking up the bullet story. see if you can find those anywhere.
Firing it with his mouth. Right down the barrel of his gun. That's what Superman can do.
Anything, if it's even out there, I guarantee it's like if you just hung in there, you can save things now. Watch it on eBay, and a lot of the times within 2 or 3 hours, you'll have an offer from eBay where they're going to take 18 to 30% off of that.
Right.
So I bet you can get it for $1.50, man. I'm like,
Splash Page Comics asks Jared, "Why did you leave Marvel and would you return?" I left Marvel because I was old. Basically, there was actually a story with a fantasy football dispute with my boss, which was the literal mechanism for me leaving. But I basically left because I could have come back, but I was old. I was working there pretty much freelance still. They paid me better than the staff people most of the time. But I've been there for 15 years on and off. And there's just there wasn't that much fun anymore. The job was boring as hell. I could do it in my sleep. I was always a freelancer there. So I was only working 3 days. I would come in the 90s. I would come in for months and leave for months and come in. So Virginia Ramita would always let me do that. So that kind of set the stage. And by my end there, I was working regularly 3 days just because I'm an artist. I didn't want to work I didn't want to commute all the way into New York City 5 days a week for the rest of my life. So that's why I never worked. Some weeks I did work 5 days a week, but usually I worked there 3 days a week freelance, and I'd come and go. And it just got to the point where, I'm 35, 37, and everybody else doing the job is 25.
Yeah.
Because there's just no place to go in the job. And I went, I have time to try something new. And I doubt I would go back because it's not the same place. The context, I can't imagine having a job there that I'd want to go to. That kind of thing.
I think you also, I don't think you have the legs for it now with what they're wanting. Just saying, I'm just you'd have to shave, skirt. I'm just saying,
It's a different, by the time I left, there was no Marvel bullpen anymore. There just wasn't. And now there's even less of one. They farm out. They make the letterers do a lot of the work we used to do in the bullpen. And they just did. They were just like, you guys have to do this now.
Wow. Wow.
Well, like I said, there's just it's
you need
in
to do
the 90s. It was a totally different place than in the 2000s.
I think I think you really need to do, I don't know, a live show or I don't know, preparation, ask for questions or something, but somewhere there's a video or a live show you need to do about just working at Marvel. I don't know if it's taking questions. I don't know if you need to go through your head and find some stories, but I think it'd be fantastic. I mean, seriously, you know, I mean, just some of the little stories you've told off the cuff, like they weren't a big deal. The pictures you put on Facebook that you pulled from the 90s stuff, going through your stuff. I mean, he had the one guy go viral who was in the he was bird watching in the park. You know who I'm talking about?
Hey, Chris Cooper, right?
Yeah, and all that stuff. So I mean, just some of the little stories you told here and there, just over the last couple of months and stuff, and what I've seen on Facebook off and on. I think it'd be a really good show or something. I don't know what to work it out of, but I'm just saying it's definitely a topic about you and working at Marvel would be really good.
Mentioning Chris Cooper just reminded me too that Chris Cooper's he's the bird watcher who went viral for the woman in the Central Park. He was an editor at Marvel in the 90s, and we used to play Magic the Gathering at lunchtime. Chris, I, a few other people, and he always had, since he was such a bird fan, he would make raptor decks because Magic the Gathering has all different creatures in it. And one of the class of creatures was raptors, big birds they'd have. So he'd put together raptor decks because he was such a bird watching fan. And I can still remember him, whenever he'd cast one and put it down, he'd make raptor sound. Caw, caw. He'd make these bird call sounds as he put I can't do him justice, but it was like, even then he was such a bird watcher. Playing Magic the Gathering, he'd be making bird sounds as he cast his birds.
And you know where that bird in that Superman story came from.
Yeah, there you go. That's probably his favorite issue.
We're working towards the theme this evening, and I'm like, oh no.
Birds from hell. Tippy Hedren's nightmare.
All right, just to kind of get ready to close things up, but I do have to go here. But Tat thinks you need to do it there, Jared. Just saying.
Yeah, I got to get some of the old band together. We'll do a show.
We'll have Paolo mediate. You know, kind of run the chat there. And
he can host and ask questions.
And he'd be the muscle, telling everybody to like calm down. He'll get to you. You know.
Yeah. All right. I'll be like Mr. T. Everybody, shut up. Shut up, fool.
I ain't got time for your jibber jabber.
When they tell me to shut up, I shut up right away. I got no problem shutting up. I'll just
give me a
right now. Shut up, shutting up.
Shutting up,
guys,
sir.
as always, check out Jared's channel. Check out Paolo's channel. Everybody put pressure on Scott to get a camera. He's already cornered Sleepy Reader who said he would get him a camera. So it's time.
Yeah, I think that's just big talk.
Yeah.
He'll give you Scott will give you the camera if you pick it up in Portland.
Actually, I would not mind going to Portland because there's a couple bookstores I'd like to go to there.
Are they still there?
Yeah, Pal's Books is the largest bookstore in North America.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Splash Page Comments asked me if I worked with Sam Della Rosa. I think he was one of the Romita's Raiders, if I remember correctly, in the early 90s.
You've never mentioned his name, but there was some kind of book or era you talked about that was going on while you were there, and it was like the tail end of what I remember from Sam there.
I think there was another Della Rosa who was a Raider too. I can't remember, but I think it was Sam, and one of them is in my Facebook friends too. I'll have to look which one. Because now sometimes you have Facebook friends and they never show up in your stream.
Right. Yeah.
Let me do a search. I'm just going to do my.
Tat's a West Coast guy there. He's got a lot of bookstores. I think that's what he's talking about. Eugene, Oregon. There he goes. Up in Eugene, Oregon, there's a ton up there for him.
Yeah, that's dark horse territory.
If Pal is Beard Brackus, then he's the Howlin' Mad Murdoch.
Howler Mouse. You should change your name to Howler Mouse Murdoch just for one day.
No. Next week I might be post-crisis Howler. I don't know. I'll work up to it.
Yeah, I think I do know Sam Della Rosa. Who's the other Della? I know two Della Rosas. I can't remember which is which right now because it's been so long.
All right, guys. Any last words you want to throw out there, everybody? Paolo, put you on the spot.
I'm doing a course on Java, and it's pretty overwhelming, and I haven't been sleeping much.
Oh, good luck with that. And so I'll send good vibes toward you.
Just drink more Java.
Yeah, the thing is,
read Red Mother.
I don't like the idea of you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I'm having a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Paolo, I saw a documentary. Was it last night? I think on an expedition they had in Portugal, looking for giant squid, and the aquarium they had. The Vasco da Gama aquarium they have in Lisbon.
Yeah,
I would like to see that place. It looked really neat.
Yeah,
looked really cool.
So invite him to it. I think that's what he's looking for an invite. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, just a hop, skip, and a jump over the pond.
Yeah, you come over and I'll take you there.
It looked like a really cool place.
I haven't been there since it was in the old location, and I was in elementary school.
Yeah, and some of the islands they had the distance looked really nice too.
Mm-hmm.
So we're ending on Scott's Portugal fantasies.
There you go.
we've ended on Stranger Things. Just
yeah, not the TV show either.
Last word there, Scott. Got anything else you want to leave it in that fantasy there?
If you do end up really sore from horseback riding tomorrow, let me know. Because I get the feeling it creeps up on you, man.
He really wants you to be sore tomorrow, so
I'm not saying you want him to be sore. I hope he's not. Okay.
You just want to be right. That's why you want him to be sore.
If he is, I can empathize.
Yeah, the family here today. We for extended birthday for the wife there. We went horseback riding today, and Scott's been very concerned about being sore from Facebook to right now. We're going on 8.5 hours, Scott. So I appreciate it, man.
If you're Scott, sore, he can emphasize, and if you're not, screw you, buddy.
Scott, do you have some special herbs that can help with the pain?
No, I don't.
Yeah, but you have to pick them up from this aquarium in Portugal.
Yeah, the strongest thing I put in my body is like Dr. Pepper. Yeah.
I'm all right. And Jared, we're down to you. Do you
have Red Mother? It's coming out this week. That's my comic of the week coming out. Right. So I see it on my list. Red Mother number 10.
Hold on here. Me and my brother AG Surfer will be doing the show West Coast Comic Connection tonight on Jonathan Chulu's channel. Everybody go check that out.
Okay.
AG Surfer and Tat are good guys, man. So I'll definitely Jonathan Chulu, CH Chulus. Okay, awesome. I'm not subscribed to that channel, but I might check it out.
I don't think I am either. Let's see.
All right. Okay. Later, everybody. Thanks for popping in and sticking around, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Avoid the birds.